What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome to the first of what I assume is going to be many over the coming weeks reaction/grades video to reacting to all these big free agency moves that are going to be happening. Like today, we're probably going to get out of the top 30 guys, we'll probably get 10 or so landing spots before they can all be 100% confirmed on Wednesday. And we're starting bright and early here with the Philadelphia Eagles, who have signed, because it's not really the same thing because he was released from the Jacksonville Jaguars, but Malik Jackson, defensive tackle, on a 3-year, $30 million deal, $10 million per season. So when I kind of saw that number, I was a little bit disappointed slightly, just because it feels like 3 years, $30 million is like appropriate market value for a 29-year-old D-tackle who's been, like fringe top 10 for the better part of the last 3-4 years after he signed that mega deal to join the Jacksonville Jaguars from the Denver Broncos. But you understand that he's coming off a pretty down year, but you gotta try to look at the whole picture, because is Malik Jackson, yes, is he coming off a down year? I think he only had like 2.5 sacks or something like that last year. 3.5 sacks, with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But everyone had a down year on Jacksonville. Like, if you looked at Jalen Ramsey last season, you would say that he's like a top 10 corner in the league. He just wasn't that good. The same can go for a lot of guys on the defense. Telvin Smith didn't look particularly good. He's an absolute stud. So, boy, So I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. I'm going to hope, though, when I see the details, the finer details of this contract, there's an out, just in case Malik Jackson peaked. He could have peaked. He's 29. He's getting up there in age just a little bit. But, after seeing how well Michael Bennett played for us last year, especially for defensive line, especially for our scheme, I'm going to stop, really worrying too much about a player's age when it comes to our defensive line and trust the scheme. So, the easiest comparison for this deal to try to make sense of it, because it does seem like a lot of Philadelphia Eagle fans are kind of questioning this move on social media. Now, I do understand when I say that, this is probably a gigantic segment of the people that thought we were actually going to get Antonio Brown, when in reality, Philadelphia was just doing their due diligence. So these are the guys that are hoping out that all the, the stuff between the baseball guy and Le'Veon Bell are going to mean Le'Veon Bell's coming to the Eagles. Like, those stuff are not reality. I'm more so surprised that this is a big get. Philly freed up like $24 million worth of cap space for the upcoming season. You spend 10 of that on Malik Jackson. Like, he's getting the big money. So, like, this probably means Darby's not coming back. This probably means Jordan Hicks not coming back. I don't really see them making a big splash. I think they'll probably be able to now fill in with role players, but this is probably the big fish. Now, you got to put an asterisk there, because you never know what Howie Roseman is going to do. But I guess from that standpoint, I'm slightly disappointed. If you told me going into this free agency period that Malik Jackson was going to be our top-tier signing and then everything else, I'd be like, understanding that the strength of this upcoming draft class is the defensive line, maybe go somewhere that's not as strong. Like, I'd probably grade this personally. I think, it's right there with Jordan Hicks and Darby. If we got Jordan Hicks or Darby back, I probably would have the same kind of like, all right, it's a good deal. It fills a hole for the Philadelphia Eagles. Might not be the dream pick that most of the fan base wants, but it's a realistic pick that's definitely going to help out this team. So, is this a good deal for the Philadelphia Eagles is probably the question, probably the reason why you want to click on this video, because, who watched a lot of Malik Jackson? Malik Jackson's a stud. He's really good. I'm not going to say that he's a perennial top 10. There's probably a 2-year period where he was considered a top 10 D tackle. Probably slipped out of it last year because he's a little bit of a down year, only 3.5 sacks. But when you look at the comparison, he is taking over for Timmy Jernigan. So that's what I'm going to kind of use as the gauge for, is this a good move for the Philadelphia Eagles? Because ultimately, where we want to see Timmy Jernigan return on the defensive line next to Fletcher Cox with a cheaper deal, that's going to be Malik Jackson. So is it a good move for the Philadelphia Eagles? I think, yes, it is. I'm going to kind of break it down to why I think this is a good move, and hopefully get all you guys that are on the fence or are negative about this deal to think about it in perspective. But first thing is the contract. I don't know the finer details of the contract. If it's not a front-loaded contract, if there is not an out after year one, it's probably going to lessen it just a little bit, just because he's 29, coming off a down year. That almost seems like you give him a 3-year, $30 million or whatever. You get him $10 million this year, maybe some incentives, but then next year it's not going to be a huge cap. Like, you might eat $1 million of that 10, free up 9 or something like that. Like, very similar to like what happened with Michael Bennett. So that's kind of a big thing for me right now. But I'm going to assume a GM of Howie Roseman's caliber got something similar to that. So now when you're comparing contracts, speaking of money, Timmy Jernigan, we don't know if he would have been able to come back on a smaller number, or what if he's even looking for a smaller number. And I wouldn't even rule out the possibility of him coming back on a significantly smaller number. But he was set to make $13 million per season next year. Malik Jackson's making 10. Malik Jackson is a better defensive tackle than Timmy Jernigan for $3 million cheaper. So there you go. There's the first comparison. Next up, when you look at Timmy Jernigan, you have to look at the production. Now, not everything Timmy Jernigan did showed up on the box score. I get that, but he wasn't just a pure run stuffer. He was a guy that could affect the pocket. He could help out, and kind of we all viewed it as he made Fletcher Cox's job easier, but ultimately, the production wasn't always there. Definitely not enough so to reward him with that $13 million deal that he was set to make. Timmy Jernigan only has 2.5 career sacks with the Philadelphia Eagles since he's been there, versus in 3 years with Baltimore, he had 4 sacks, and 5 sacks. So, the production wasn't always there. The end product wasn't always there for Timmy Jernigan. And like I said, he's not really a run stuffer by trade. He's like a sub 300-pound defensive tackle. So the production just wasn't really there. And then you add in the fact that he got hurt last year. Everyone's like, what's up that injury that Timmy Jernigan suffered last year? Why wasn't he only playing 3 games about back stretch of the season? It's because he hurt himself out of facility. He hurt himself in his own time. I don't really know the extent of that, but I'm going to assume that Philadelphia was not very happy about that. It kind of voided some of the guarantees in his contract, but maybe that put some question marks up against Timmy Jernigan. But for the fact that a sub 300-pound defensive tackle only had 2.5 career sacks. Now, I'm the first one to say I like Timmy Jernigan on this team. Timmy Jernigan was productive and ultimately kind of brought the defensive line together, because when he was out there, they played so much better than when he wasn't. But the production wasn't quite there. So what we're getting in a guy that, the age difference is true. Timmy Jernigan, I think, is going to be turning 27, where Malik Jackson's 29. So there's a little bit of, layover there. You get a little bit more youth from Timmy Jernigan. We're getting a guy in Malik Jackson, yes, coming off a down year last season and only 10 games started, 3.5 sacks. But look at before with Jacksonville. Since he's been a pure defensive tackle, once he signed the big mega deal, 6.5 sacks in 2016, 8 sacks in 2017, made the Pro Bowl for whatever that's worth. So the fact that we're getting a cheaper player that has more sacks in his 3 years as a pure defensive tackle than Timmy Jernigan should give you an idea what kind of an upgrade we're going to get. Throw into the fact that he's a converted defensive end, so he has those pass rushing moves that might not be as natural to a defensive tackle. It's an exciting move. Now, when you look at the landscape of D tackles, Ndamukong Suh's out there, but he would be definitely more than $10 million per. You got Sheldon Richardson, has some off the field, probably around that $10 million per. So, and then that's it. I think Malik Jackson is as good. He's in that Sheldon Richardson territory. I think there's a legitimate claim that Malik Jackson was the second best defensive tackle on the market. At worst, he's the third best, with Grady Jarrett signing that the tag in Atlanta. So it's a good move. It gets a brand new starting D tackle. There's no question marks about this position. And then it comes down to the draft. Well, I kind of need to go against my own point. I think the strength of the draft is clearly the interior, but might not necessarily be the interior when it comes to pick 25 for the Philadelphia Eagles. I've done enough mock drafts to kind of get a ballpark about what defensive tackles are going to be there. There's no way Ed Oliver's going to slip. And really the big fish would be Christian Wilkins. And I would probably say it's 50-50 at best that Christian Wilkins was still there at 25. And hey, if he's still there at 25, they may select him. We all know how much Philadelphia likes to rotate defensive linemen. But, it's one of those things. Just imagine on draft day, Philly's at 25. We don't have a Malik Jackson. We still have that big hole next to Fletcher Cox. Trayvon Hester's a good rotational guy, but not ready to get the starting position, or not, shouldn't even be in that conversation. Just imagine Christian Wilkins is not there. So now Philly's sitting at 25. You probably have Dexter Lawrence, who's a run stuffer, these guys, while I do think Dexter Lawrence is a very intriguing pick, wouldn't be upset about him at pick 25. It would kind of be a slight reach just because he is a run stuffer right now who could develop pass rushing moves. But right now, run stuffing D tackles don't really go in the first round. I mean, Vita Vea last year to the Bucks was kind of the exception. But, I mean, at 25, can he do better than Dexter Lawrence for value? Probably can, and we've seen years past really just goes for value at defensive line. Like we drafted Derek Barnett just because he was the best guy that was still there at 13. So, if say we're sitting there at 25 and Christian Wilkins is off the board, and maybe Dexter Lawrence is off the board, I don't know. Then you're starting to look at guys that are in the second round, trying to reach to get a D tackle, like a Jerry Tillery or a Draymond Jones or something like that. So it kind of gives us a little bit more flexibility, just because in reality for me, I'm trying to say, let's defend this Malik Jackson move. Let's try to say, I wanted to draft a D tackle. Well, if Christian Wilkins wasn't there, he's probably the only guy right now looking at this entire offseason. If you were to say realistically he could sign for about $10 million per, which eliminates Ndamukong Suh, I'd take Malik Jackson if we can't get Christian Wilkins. So we're kind of proactive in that front. Assuming we can't get Christian Wilkins, get a guy like Malik Jackson. So it's a good move for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I guess the only down right now is I don't know the extent of the contract. I don't know if there's an out after year number 1. Is the contract doesn't really seem like a Howie Roseman steal of a contract. It seems like he got pretty fair market value. So I mean, we could be a little bit down on that, but I mean, it's one of those things. I just feel like in the back of my mind, the people that are upset about this move as Philadelphia Eagle fans, these are the guys that wanted us to bring in Deshaun Jackson at like $12 million cap hit. Or these are the guys that wanted us to get Le'Veon Bell or Antonio, like just unrealistic fans that have unrealistic expectations. This free agency period is about getting excited for the steals, the underrated players that Philadelphia could potentially target. I think they're not done. Right now, I kind of hope best case scenario, Jordan Hicks tests the open market and comes back to Philly on a 1-year prove-it deal. That's probably our best case scenario with Darby too. But I would probably say at this point, this eliminates Ronald Darby coming back because Darby was going to get paid at least $10 million per year, and we're not going to be able to hand out 2 of those contracts. But hopefully we do get to see Jordan Hicks back for the Philadelphia Eagles. But still, we got Howie's busy. Howie's going to be busy. This is probably not the last time we're going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. But starting it out with Malik Jackson could be a lot worse. And I'm very excited to see what he could bring to the defensive line. Malik Jackson, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett. That's still the best defensive line by a long shot in the NFC East and one of the best in the entire league. So what do you guys feel about this move? Let me know in the comment section below, and I'm sure we'll be back for, obviously it'll be a little bit shorter videos because this is the Eagles, so I'm going to go a little bit more in depth for all the big free agency moves over the coming week or so. So if you want to stay up to date with getting my opinion, and maybe I might actually break the news if you're at work or something like that and you're not able to check it on social media, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you're hyped for Malik Jackson joining the Philadelphia Eagles. And until next time, guys, it's E4 saying peace out.